Okay, cool. So, yep, this week we're going to be talking about classes in JavaScript. How many of you guys had a chance to go through the MDN's classes?
I did.
Okay. Joe, Cameron, did you guys get a chance to look at it?
I did not, actually. But I've been practicing async and await, so.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. It's fun. It sounds like every one of you guys, I've had a chance to talk to you at least once between last meeting and this one, and all of you guys have been playing with it. So that makes me really happy, actually. Okay, cool. There you are, Joe.
Well,
Hey, Joe.
hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. Okay, all right. Can someone give me a definition of what a JavaScript class is?
We're taking it right now.
Heyo. How true that is.
And that happened.
So like when I learned like my Java class, like for a class, it's something you kind of reference that's in like another file essentially. And it could have like its own functions, objects in there. And you would just reference them in like, the main file.
Yep. Okay. Yep. It's so you hit it with, I don't actually remember exactly how you said it, but it has functions within it. That's true. It has that. What other things does a class have?
Properties.
Properties.
I guess it doesn't always have to have properties, but it can have properties and functions. And whenever you create a new instance of a class, it inherits all those properties and functions.
Perfect. Yep, that's true. So what you're talking about is class inheritance, and JavaScript does use that as well.
Oh, is that what inheritance means? Actually, I don't know if that's technically the right word to use there, but
yep, that's exactly correct. That's the technical term. Whenever you create a new class, or if you extend a class, you inherit the properties of that other class. Or whenever anytime you instantiate a new class, you're creating new instances, but that take a copy of that original class onto the new instance of the class. So yeah, those are great.
Yeah. I mean, since I'm just a big fan of analogies, when I was going through it, it felt like a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Where you can pour stuff in and make a bunch of copies of it, make them a little bit different, but that's the framework that you're generating.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. A class is, if you guys ever played World of Warcraft or any game where there's a dungeon in it, but it's an instance dungeon. Whenever you walk into it, it's your own world. You don't see all the other players in it. Does that sound familiar to anyone?
I have not played those games.
Okay.
Nerd.
Yeah.
Like Rust, you have your own base.
Say that again?
Kind of like in Rust, how you have your own base.
Kind of. So what this is so I'm using WoW or World of Warcraft because I know I'm familiar with it. I know Dallas is. But what it is every single time you'd walk into a dungeon with your group, it gave you a new version of that dungeon. It didn't create a brand new one, like that was completely different than everyone else's. It gave you a copy of what that dungeon should be, and it keeps copying it over and over and over again. Those are called instances. So they have their template that whenever you walked into it, it created a new version of it for your group. And so that was a class, and that was creating instances. That's why they call them instances. So same thing with our programs that we write to. We're going to write classes, and they're used to create, it's just the template. And whenever we call new on it, we're going to create new versions of that class. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and start up my code here so we could show you what those look like. Let me see here. demos for Joe. So I'm just going to make a new project. dr demos into demos. Okay, and code dot, not that, except that worked. Huh. I have no idea what code comma does, but it opened up 2 of my editors. Okay. So close a few of these out here. Don't save. Cool. All right. So with all our demos, we're going to start with a new index file. So let's go ahead and do a new file here. Index. Oops. Index HTML. And we're going to create our new file here. Okay, and open the live server.
Real quick, what did you just do in your terminal? And I mean, why did you do what you did in your terminal in order to, it has something to do with Visual Studio Code as opposed to just opening up Visual Studio Code on its own?
Yeah.
Like, what did that extra step do?
So what I did here is, so if I go back, so I'm in a folder called dev right now, and I've hit ls, that stands for list. And that lists out all my folders that are inside this folder. And if I wanted to, I could come to VS Code and I can do, man, I don't even do it this old way. It's been a while. Man, I open up a new project, which I could come down here, right click and say new window. And then I can come in here and hit open folder, then browse for it, and then open the folder. Or you can do it like this, where I came into here, I went into the folder I want to create this in, and I did mkdir, that stands for make directory, which a directory is a folder. Then I gave the name of the folder, so I said demos, but I already have that here. Then after I made that folder, I cd'd into demos. That means change directory, so I changed into it, so I moved into the demos folder. Then I typed in the word code and then dot, which means open up my code editor, which is VS Code. So that's just a shortcut for this. And if I close this, you might not see it happen, but I hit enter. It opens up VS Code, and I'm inside that folder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just a shortcut.
Okay.
You guys all want to get really familiar with using the terminal. You'll be doing most of your work. You do a lot of your work from the terminal, especially as you start doing more advanced things. And after you get good with it, this is way faster to work in here than it is to use the file explorer for everything. So yeah, let me know if you have any more questions about that. This thing, the terminal is awesome. Okay, cool. All right, we got our blank project here off to the side. And I am going to do, unlike what we've done in our past projects, I'm going to instead do a script file. Script with a source equals, and we're going to call this our classy.js. I'm sure I spelled that wrong, but here with a quote in it. So let's rename this guy. Okay, cool. So let's pretend like we wanted to create a person over and over again. Let's say we got a we have an array of people and we want to create a new person over and over and over again. We have const people equals an array, and we'll have a person in here. We'll have, what are some properties of a person?
Name.
Name. We'll call this one Dallas. What's another property of a person?
Last name.
Last? So it goes last.
Age, height, weight.
All right, let's say age. Dallas is 55.
Pretty close. 38.
38. All right, and we'll say wait. Yeah, we don't need to do that. We'll just do age, and then let's do occupation. No, let's say job. And
Is that
you
because
are
you don't know how to spell occupation?
correct. Have you guys? There's a T-shirt out there that says "I'm a programmer," but programmer's misspelled, so it's crossed out. Then below it says "I'm a programmer," but programmer's misspelled differently, so it's crossed out. Then below it says "I write code." You don't have to spell correctly, just consistently. Okay, so then we'll have Lehigh. Lehigh is 31. You are a developer. We got Joe here. Joe, I'm gonna, let's see here. Joe, Serino. And I'm gonna guess at your age. You'll be 38 too.
Close. Yeah, I'm 39.
39.
Man, old man Joe.
I know. I'm gonna be 40 on the 30th of this month.
Oh man.
Do one more in here. Cameron, I'm gonna guess at your last name. Bo Jangles.
You're so close. It's Rogers.
You got it first try.
And you're a student as well. Okay, so we have people here. And if we wanted to take these people, and we're just gonna console.log them out. And come over here to our console. Refresh. Uh-oh. Oh no, we killed it. When I say we, I mean I. Oh, I got to start the server up again. I closed the file. Open up live server. There we go. And we can close this one. Okay, cool. So we have just 4 objects. They're nothing special at all, just holding some data. So let's say, for example, here, we wanted to be able to print out the full name of a person. How would we do that without a class? What would we need to do?
Without a class.
Yeah, I
maybe
want to see.
Console log people dot name.
Yeah, I want to see that we print to the screen. So what would you say, Dallas?
Would you do like a console log people dot name and then people dot last?
So you say that, and then you said people dot last.
Oh, you just this is just an array of objects, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
what's this gonna do?
There's a lot of different. Well, I think if you had you wanted to print everyone's first and last name, or
Yeah. We'll just do the first person.
oh, just the first person. Okay.
Mhm.
I don't know how it would know which element in the array
Would
you're
you like-
referring to. You do a for loop and then loop through it. I guess you're only using the first one. So I guess you could say people. We could do a for loop and say people I dot name plus dot last, something like that. I don't know if you could do it without a for loop because you have to. How do you get something out of an array? Oh no, you could just put 0 as element, right? So you
Yeah.
could
What was
do
Question?
people 0 dot name.
Would you put 0 in the bracket?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then like plus, or I guess you could just call it, yeah, exactly like that. I think that, yeah.
Cool. Yep, that worked. So we were able to get first and last name of the first person in there. Cool. That works great. But this is pretty verbose doing this. What if how could you add a method onto here to be able to log out? I want to do this. I want to say people dot, well, let's say people 0th dot full name. How would I do that?
You'd have to make a variable called full name that knows its first and last.
Or you could make a method that returns the first and last name for the user you pass in.
Okay. All right. Tell us more about that. What do you mean, Lehigh? This is redundant.
I mean, if you just have a method that returns, pass in a user object and it returns user dot name plus user dot last.
Okay. So you're saying this, and then we say return this dot name.
All right, so at the risk of sounding ridiculous, like I still get tripped up when we say like, because I see that you're writing an anonymous arrow function there.
Mhm.
So in my mind, it's like, oh, we write a function for that. But Lehigh said method, and you knew what he was talking about. Like, are we using them interchangeably, or am I missing something?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Can you put a method? I mean, can a method only live inside of a class, or can a method live? I mean, a class is an object, and you're making. Yeah,
Yeah.
this looks different than what I don't know if methods are only in classes, or
Yeah.
if they can be considered this, because it's still in an object, I guess.
You nailed it. A method is a function that lives inside of an object or a class. If
Yeah.
it doesn't live inside of it, if it's not attached to the object right here, like basically if there's not a comma right here, or no, disregard the comma part. But if it's not within a object, then it's just a function. But as
So
soon
if
as
the
it's,
value of a key is a function, then that key is considered a method.
say that again.
So, oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah, I fixed it. I had a little problem here. This is the right
oh
way.
okay,
about that.
okay.
A method is basically a function inside an object or a class.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
Okay.
with a method, you can do this syntax right here, where I didn't have to do the arrow method. I didn't have to do this. In fact, this broke it whenever I did it like this.
Oh, so you
Alright.
can't do a key with a value of a function. It has to be just a straight up like function in there.
Function without a arrow definition. That way,
And without saying function.
yeah, because as soon as I do this, again, this is a subject that's really, I won't even taint it, but we're dealing with this. Since we did this colon here and we did an arrow here, whenever we called this method, it's undefined because this is referring to, it leaves these curly braces here and it's going by the context of what it was executed in, which is out here in the console. So it's to the window. We won't get too deep into that. But by doing this, removing that and that, it now has changed it into a object method or a class method, but this isn't a class, it's just an object. It's an object method. So it traps this to be between these curly braces here. So that's how this is referring to this name here.
Okay. Because a function, its scope is based on where it was called.
Yep.
But so by using a method, you're narrowing the scope to where it's actually located on the page.
Correct. So I'm saying stay trapped here between these curly braces.
Okay.
So that's how this dot name works and this dot last.
So you're literally just creating a function inside of an object.
Yep, a method.
Oh, okay. Okay. So full
Yeah,
name.
and what he was just saying is the reason that you would use a method and why it's not necessarily a function is because its scope is different than what a function would be.
Yeah. Method is
Okay.
trapped to its curly braces, while a function is trapped to its execution. Who executed it? So, for example, here, if I changed it back to this, since I changed it to an arrow function here, and I called it from right here, outside of all of this, I just came up to this top level here, I called it, this is the context of the window, and window doesn't have a this dot name or this dot last. So this is outside of that object now, it's the entire application. But by switching it to here, we limit its context to be just these curly braces. Everything in between here.
That syntax you're using on line 6, it looks like you're literally calling the function and then defining it. Could you use that syntax? I know it's a method, but could you use that? You couldn't use that syntax to create a function anywhere else, could you?
No, I can't say Bob this. It doesn't like it. It goes,
Okay.
I don't know what this is. And I said
Okay.
blob. Whoops, Bob.
So it's like you're calling the function. This says full name, and then you're literally calling the function full name, but you haven't even defined it yet.
Yeah. So
So
this is defining it right here.
Okay.
And so the only reason that full name works is because it's inside an object.
Correct. That's special to objects and classes. And an object is an instance of a class.
Object is an instance of a class. Okay.
Yeah. So here I'm gonna throw something to kind of trip you guys up. So how do you create a new array in JavaScript?
Yeah, empty brackets.
Empty
Square
brackets. How do you create a new object?
Curly bracket.
Brackets.
Curly. That's correct. But this is actually shorthand for creating whenever you do this actually is calling a new array and new object. So so really you're doing this.
Oh, cool. Nice.
So this is the same thing as that. But for some reason, whenever JavaScript was created, they're like, we use arrays and objects so much. Let's make a shorthand so you don't have to type this whole thing out every time. So they made this. So,
Nice.
so whenever I'm doing this right here, I'm literally calling new object. And that's why I'm saying new object. That is why this is an instance of it's an instance of an object. That's why I can put method calls on it.
When you create a class, say for example, you already create your own class and you wanted to add a method to it, could you use that same syntax that you're using on line 6 to create the method?
Yep. In fact, you're getting to the next part that I want to start talking about. What's fun is I'm showing you guys that objects are classes, and then we're going to slowly roll into creating our own class is what I'm doing. So save that. Full name still works. So now what's painful about this, if I wanted to have Lehigh's here do the same thing, type in 1 right here. Oopsie. Hit save. Has no idea what full name is. And so we would have to copy this, move it down to Lehigh, put it here. Whoops. Put it here. Now it works. Then if I wanted to do it for Joe, I'd have got to copy and paste it again. And for Cameron. And for every single instance of this person, I'd have to keep copying that method over and over and over and over again.
Got it.
And as developers, we are lazy and we don't want to write code over and over again. We want to be as lazy as possible, aka another word for that is efficient, if we want to use the nice word. And so we're going to write something to keep that full name being attached to this person every time. Okay, cool. Everyone understand objects and how we can write methods on them?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So now let's create a person class. So how would you write a class? Does anyone know?
You write class. And then write whatever you want to name your class.
Capital, I think.
Yes. Why capital?
Because that's what good developers do.
That's honestly the best answer. Because you can do it lowercase. But you will want to do a uppercase one that's following, don't know the right word is, but it's good developer syntax, because it's whenever you do a new class, you say, this is the template. You'll never use the class itself. You're always going to use an instance of the class. So whenever I create a new person, I always call the new person a lowercase of whatever that class was. So whenever I call new person, I'd say const lowercase person equals new capital person. It's just good syntax. If you don't do that, developers will look at your code and just think it looks funny. Okay, cool.
So, after that, you put a constructor in there.
Yes. What is a constructor?
Go ahead.
It's, I don't know. Actually, I was going to kind of ask that, but the way I've been thinking about it lately is that it just seems like it's accepting parameters for the person. Like if this class person was an actual function, the constructor would just be accepting parameters for the function person. And so if you create a new instance of a class and you pass parameters, they're going to hit the constructor inside of the person class. Does that make any sense?
Yes. Nope. That's absolutely correct. The constructor is what receives the arguments for a class when it's being created or constructed, first built.
What's the difference between an argument and a parameter?
They're used interchangeably.
Is an argument something more than a parameter, or a parameter something more than a
So the way that I like to think about it is I usually call parameters are the things that you're passing into a function from outside of it. I got to look up actually a good definition of it. So if I called, I don't know, we call a function thing. There we go. X, Y, Z. I call these right here arguments. But whenever I call it, I say thing 1, 2, and 3. I call these parameters.
Oh, okay.
That's not technical. That's just what I keep calling them. They're used interchangeably. You'll hear people call them back and forth, arguments or parameters.
Is that actually, do a lot of developers do what you just said? Because that actually makes sense. Because I always say to myself, okay, whenever you create a function, you're not defining the parameters, you're just naming them. And then whenever you call the function, you're defining them. So I could actually say you just use arguments when you create a function and parameters when you call the function.
Yeah, and you're making me think more about this.
Oh,
deeper.
I didn't mean to get you off track, but
you're good. So technically, so these are for sure arguments. Inside of here, they are arguments. Because when you're in here, you can literally call console.log arguments and not call any of these right here. And it holds your stuff. In fact, just for funsies, that's why I like this class. We can explore whatever we want to go down. But if I put this in here, but then I call thing, and then I say 1, 2, and 3. It gives me
Oh,
the
nice.
arguments that were passed in there, 1, 2, and 3. So these are for sure called arguments.
Wait. Did you? Okay, so if you put console log right there, okay, so after you call the function, you've defined the XYZ, and now the console log within the function recognizes them as arguments. So they don't become arguments until you define them, which means,
What he said was backwards.
yeah,
The parameters is what you put into the initial function, and then when you call it, would be the arguments.
So yeah, these are the arguments here.
I think what Joe's saying and how I'm understanding it is backwards of what you're saying. The parameters are in line 35 and the arguments are on 39.
Yeah, for the for the sake of argument, we'll just call them all arguments.
okay.
But we for sure they are arguments because there's this reserved word that you can use inside of a function called arguments that will literally log out all of the arguments that were passed to it. So that's a special word, arguments.
So once they're defined, they become arguments.
Mhm.
Okay.
But now you got me, I want to go look up parameters and such, but I can do that later. But for the sake of argument, these are arguments. Okay, cool. Neat. So now let's talk about parameters.
So the parameters we put in, wouldn't that be like name, last, age, and
Sorry, arguments. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Say that again.
so the arguments that we would put in there would be like name, last, age, job.
Age and job. Yep. So these are just being passed into the constructor as arguments. They don't live on the class yet. They're just passed into here. How do we make it so this class actually has these things?
This dot name equals name.
Yep, that works. Joe, do you want to explain to me why this works, or do you have a question about it?
My brain wants to say that it's the other way. Like the name goes first, so it'd be name equals this dot last. And then I've never seen a constructor with parameters or arguments, whatever the hell they're, I'm confused now, but I've always seen that blank. I've never seen it where it's like says name, last, age, job. Those parentheses are usually empty. Am I wrong on that? Am I just imagining that? I can't remember.
You just may have never come across a case where arguments have been passed to a class. You may have been always instantiating just a blank one.
I mean,
Okay.
class doesn't even need to have a constructor either.
If you're not passing anything to the class, if you're just saying new person, but you don't give it any property or any arguments, then you don't need a constructor.
That's actually a good point. I was thinking about that yesterday because I knew we were going to study classes. I thought for one lesson a few months back, someone told me that you can actually create properties inside, because these are properties, right?
Correct.
Okay. So can you create properties outside of the constructor or no?
Yes, you
can. Okay.
can. So you wanted like another property here. You want to say, I don't know.
Could you be like this dot species equals human because every person you make is going to be human?
Yeah. So we can say species.
Yeah, I remember doing a lesson where they're like telling me, oh, you don't have to put the word lat or const or anything in front of it. You can just put, like you just did, species. And then I got to thinking yesterday about, well, I thought properties lived in constructors, so why would I ever create a property outside of a constructor?
Because you would want to pass things to it. I'll show you that.
And maybe I'm asking questions prematurely because maybe you're just going to show it all. So I don't.
Yeah, and why do you need a constructor, Austin?
That's a great question.
That might kind of explain the properties question.
So we have a person here, and let's show. Yeah, just for funsies. Let me copy this, and we're gonna put this down here. We're gonna get rid of this guy, and all we have is that. So how do we instantiate a new person?
New
New.
space person, lowercase, I believe. Oh, it's still capital. Okay. I can't remember the exact syntax, to be honest.
Wouldn't you need to make a variable like a const lowercase person equals new person?
Yeah, sure. We'll hold the result. Yeah, so this is the class or the cookie cutter or whatever you want to call it. It's the class. And we say, hey, I want a new instance of you. So it says, cool. So it does that, calls this, returns person. Cool. And if we console.log person, we got a person here. It has species on it, human, and it's prototype of nothing. See, it actually does have a constructor, but it doesn't do anything.
Okay, I think I'm following. So if you create a class and then you create a new instance of that class and you haven't written a constructor in it, and say, for example, you said person.species, it would say human. So basically the value of the species key in the object can never be changed. But if you have a constructor, you can modify the value of the key.
So
Is
yeah,
that why you'd want a constructor versus not a constructor?
Okay.
oh yeah.
So you can change the value of species?
Well, and Austin, I think this plays into a question that I wrote down from earlier, because it had mentioned in the reading a static method. Is that what that is?
Nope, that's not static. This is still an instance version. This created a new one. Since we didn't say static on here, you're getting into a deep another concept here. But since we didn't say static here, it's part of the instanced version of the class. Let me jump into that in a second here.
You're fine.
But let's go ahead and stay on the same vein. So we still have person here. How would I create a person with all these properties? Would
That's where you
this
need the
work?
constructor.
Yeah. Why?
Because it has arguments for you to put in. So you could put new person, and then in the property or in the arguments that Dallas level 38 teacher, and have that come up.
Yeah. Whoop. So this kind of got a sneak peek here of what happened. I just called new person right here without any properties. I logged it out, and this is what we get. Why did we get that?
Because I'll let somebody else take that.
There is no pass parameters for the constructor, so it's just species by default.
Yeah, so species is the only thing that is defined inside of here, but that's not passed in, that's just there. But we didn't pass anything to it. So what would we need to do to populate person?
Just put the first, last, age, job inside the whatever those braces are called.
Yeah, as arguments, or so we could do this. Let's make it a little bit simpler here. I'll just hard code it in. So we're gonna say this is Cameron and Rogers, and oh man, I did those in strings. Anyways, you got your age here, 35. Cool. And then the next argument is job, and that is a student. Cool. Save that. Cool. Now you have all these fun properties about you. Something to take note too is it says person right here, which lets you know that this instance is it's an instance of the class person here. That's important. Okay, cool. So we're creating a class here, but this is absolutely no better than what we've been doing up here. We've gained nothing by doing this. But we had that problem where we had to copy that function full name over and over and over again for every object. So how would I go and make this class have that method by default for everything?
You asked that one more time.
So right here,
You put the method inside of the class on line 33, for example, or
yeah, we'll be good devs and put these down here.
Is this where the site was talking about a getter?
Ooh, getters. Yeah.
That was another question I wrote down.
Let's do getters here too. We'll do simple. We'll make it so we can match what we did up here. So this was just saying return this dot name plus, and then we had just an empty space, and then we said this dot last, like that. And we want do the same thing. So Joe, you're saying, hey, just add that method down here.
yeah, could you just tell me our goal right now? I think I'm following, but what is our goal right now? What are we trying to accomplish?
Our current goal is we want to be able to take the full name, because right now with this object itself, this is called a POJO. It's a plain old JavaScript object.
Okay.
Doesn't do anything special, but we want to extend it. We want a person class to have some unique methods that any instance of a person will have these methods. For example, getting their full name.
Okay.
'Cause right now, we have to copy this method over and over and over again for each
Right.
time we do this. We don't want to do that.
Yes. Okay. Then yeah, I think that's correct. That you would just paste it right there as a method.
Okay. So you say full name, and we're going to say return this dot name plus quote space plus this dot last. Okay.
Okay. So my question right now, just because this is different from the example I read, that getter like you just wrote,
That's
they
not a
put
getter.
get in front of, they're like get area, and then it give a return statement.
Yes. I'm going to get into that 1 second because this
Okay.
isn't a getter yet. This is just a method.
I have a question on getters and setters.
1 second. 1 second. Let me show this one and then we'll roll right into that. So real quick. So we got a person object here. And if you expand it out, you'll notice that you don't see this method on here, the full name. It's part of the prototype, which means it's part of the class, and every single instance of this class will have the same thing. Full name. This method does exist on here. So I'm just saving this into a variable. If this is magic,
Is it worth elaborating on proto or no? I don't get that, but maybe I don't need to right now.
that is a super good question. And
Like I didn't understand what you just said. You're like, okay, so here's person, it shows all the properties, but it doesn't show the methods. And it doesn't show the methods because they live in a proto.
Correct.
Okay.
They're a proto. So if anyone ever asks, is JavaScript an object-oriented language? You could say, yes, kind of. It's actually a prototypical inheritance language. It's different from Java or Python, which those are all very heavy object-oriented. JavaScript is, but it's a special kind. It's called a prototypical language. That's a deeper conversation. Let's save that one. So,
Okay.
I got to turn off my gchat because it's just showing up all over my code. Okay. So I just saved person into temp1. So I can say temp1 dot get or let's say here, full name. And notice here, whenever I call full name, it's a method. So how do I actually execute it?
You gotta put the brackets, parentheses.
That gave me Cameron. Cool. Any magic there that, or does this make 100% sense of what just happened here?
That makes 100% sense to me. I just want to make sure I'm clear on. Okay, so why have a property that's not inside of a constructor? It's just because if you don't want to change the value of the property ever, then you just keep it out of the constructor.
Yeah, this is trying to think of a good situation.
I mean,
where
is
you
that
want
like
this.
rare? Is that do we does anyone ever even do that? Or should I just
Well, and I'll say constructors is only when you know the values when you create or instantiate that object. If you don't know the value yet, or if it comes later, then you wouldn't be able to include it in a constructor.
if you don't know the value yet, you don't know it later.
If you're gonna have a property on that object that you don't necessarily have the value of when it's created,
Okay.
then you might not include it in the constructor.
So, for example, you could say let's do species here. Let's pretend like we have no idea what this person's species is. And that's something that we'll define later. So you could hit save here. Again, all I'm doing is I'm right clicking on this, storing it as a global variable, just taking this instance of this person, just holding it in a variable called temp1. It's still person. So I can do temp1 dot species, and that's empty, right? Oh, now that I've created this person, we need to assign them to a species. So you can say temp1 dot species equals Zerg. And now if I go temp1, log it out.
Okay.
So you can still assign them later.
Got it.
But a lot of times you'll assign it at the time of construction. Yeah.
Can you do something for me? Could you get rid of the parameters in constructor, between the parentheses?
So
Constructor up there in the top on line 29.
get rid of this.
Yeah, could you get rid of that?
Yeah.
Not that. Yeah, like just that. Does it work now
Oops.
or no? Does it no longer work?
It's gonna go. It goes. What the heck is last?
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So it wants those arguments to be passed. But I'll show you guys a little.
Why did it not care about name?
It got undefined, passed it in here, then it went last, and it says, okay, I'm just blowing
cool.
up. But I'll show you a little trick here. So just like Lehigh was saying, you don't have to pass, a constructor doesn't have to take parameters. Or like in your case right here that you just said, Joe, what if you have parameters and it depends on those things being there, or else the class doesn't work? There is a middle ground between the two.
Could you say that last sentence again? I'm sorry. Could you say that again?
There's a middle ground between not needing any parameters and requiring that all parameters be there, all arguments be there.
Okay.
So let's pretend right here. So we got name, last, age, job. Let's pretend that job isn't required. And if you don't pass a job to it, you're always going to be a developer. So this is called defaults. This is kind of neat. So see right here, so we passed into this student. So Cameron is a student. Oops. Yeah, student. But let's say we don't pass that fourth argument. Get out of here. I thought I closed that. And so we're going to say, hey, we're not going to pass that. So his default is he's a developer. Does that make sense? I feel like I blew you guys' minds.
So that's very similar to having a property outside of the constructor, or no?
No, this is just a default. This is saying like, hey, if they don't pass this parameter or this argument to me, this fourth argument. So you see 1, 2, 3. We didn't pass the fourth one.
Oh, okay.
If he says, if I get undefined, just make it a developer. We'll just say
Okay.
that's what he is.
But if you do, if you kept it as job equals developer and you did pass a parameter, then it would override the default.
Yeah, like
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
garbage dude. So Cameron is now a garbage dude. Anyways,
Okay.
Garbage person. Thank you very much.
sorry.
My personality and my profession separate.
Cool. Okay, cool. Anyways, we got on a little bit of tangent there showing defaults, but that was good. Showing that, hey, classes don't always need arguments to actually, sometimes classes require that you put arguments there to, you can put them there or you don't have to if you use defaults if they don't pass something. Okay, let's talk about getters. So why we have Cameron here right now, we say temp1 dot full name, and we had to execute it with parentheses like that. But if we go temp1 dot first, or did I lose it? Oh, name. We don't have to put parentheses there because it's a property, right?
Mhm.
It's not a function. So it feels kind of silly. If I would expect, if I did temp1 dot full name, that feels like that should be just a property on there. That doesn't feel like it should be a method. I don't feel like it should be constructing anything under the hood. So how would you make that happen? Dallas, you had that question with getters.
Okay. And I mean, again, like just from the reading, it's almost like I'm writing another method, but it's not quite, because I say get and then the name of whatever I want to call my getter, and then ask it to return that full name method.
Yeah. So all you have to do is put the word get in front of this. Save. So now, maybe I had to say getter, but get temp1. Oh, I got to say this again. Give me this again. Temp1 dot full name, and see how I don't have to execute it as a method now.
What? Okay.
There's some gotchas though with this. It still is a function, but the only way getters work is with functions. You can pass arguments to it, right? That's the whole purpose of a function. You can.
Wait, so that's a function, not a method?
A method. This is a method. Oh man, gotta get my lingo right.
I'm just trying to keep it straight now. I know their scopes are super different.
Yeah. So this method. So with a method, you can pass arguments to it, and do things to it. With getter methods, the deal is you cannot pass any arguments to it. See here, because there's no parentheses anymore. But you can still do, but you can, in getter methods, you can do computation under the hood. So that's what we did. We did some computation. We took this one, we concatenated this empty string, and we took this variable and we stuck them together and we returned it back. So it's not as simple as, hey, hey class, give me this property on here. And the class is very simple, just goes, yep, here's your property, here you go. Instead it's, hey class, give me the full name. And the class goes, okay, let me go get that for you. Hold on, let me compose it, put it all together for you, and then I'll give it to you.
I have a getter question. I have my getter question still.
Yeah.
So getters and setters are very common in more strict object-oriented languages like Java, where you have public and private variables are common. Are they used very much in JavaScript?
Ask that, or are you just saying?
Because I know getters exist, right? But I don't know if I've ever used one, ever wrote one. At least not as a strict getter, even if that's what it was doing.
They're not crazy common, mainly because JavaScript is very loose. In a a stronger typed language like Java, I'm not allowed to do this age and then just set it to like 39. I'm not supposed to
Well,
be able to
you
do
are
that.
allowed if it's public, but typically all your class variables are private. So I guess my other question would be, so you have a getter there, right? If you have get full name, or if full name is just a regular old method, it's going to return the same thing. Now you can lock it down so you can't pass anything in with a getter, but is there really any reason it should be a getter over just a normal method?
That's what I was thinking too. I mean, it's like cute and everything at this point that we can have a getter, but why use a getter? What's the main utility of it? Like all you have, I mean, really so far, all I understand is that you don't have to put parentheses after it. But there's got to
Yeah.
be a better reason to use it than that.
So let's think that through. What is some good reasons why?
I guess my two questions would be like, are using getters rare? And if you use them, when do you use them and why? Like, well,
Yeah. So they're there to protect the developer. So what I was saying with Java, like what I did here, when I said temp1 age equals 39, that's a big no-no in languages like Java or Python. When you're dealing with a class and there's instance methods on it, or not methods, but properties, touching them directly is bad. That means anyone can come in and mess with these values without running through proper checks. So for example, for temp1 age, if we're being good devs and we want to protect other developers from unaccidentally messing up, setting age to temp1 dot age equals Bilbo Baggins. Like that's bad. Now, if I try to take this class and pass it and try to save it, I'm going to go pull this age off of it, and the age is supposed to be a number. And I send that to the back end, and the back end's like, great, I'm going to take age, I'm going to store it into the database into this integer only column in the DB. It's going to blow up hard on you because we allow the developer to change age to whatever he wants without doing any kind of check on it. So that's where getters and setters come in. It's to protect the developers from doing something silly like
Well,
this.
I mean, a setter would protect you from setting it, but not a getter.
A getter, yeah. So a getter will protect you from, let's see here. Let's see. Like getters, they make it simpler on you. So full name, this name, last name, or something like this. Let's say get, I don't know, full price. Let's pretend like this person had, let's say get total. And pretending like this person had a bunch of math on here. So let's say item 1 equals 10, item 2 equals 15, or whatever. And so get total here. So underneath the hood, it's going to run math every single time. So you say return item 1 plus item 2. So nothing crazy there. Save. Storage local temp 1 dot total. And I broke it. Temp 1 total. What did I do here? Oh, whoops. Just stop. Okay. So it's a convenience method, the getter. So I come in here and I say, yeah, just give me the total here. I don't have to run the math myself. Else, what you do is if you want to hold the total, you'd come up here and you need to run the computation yourself and store it here and constantly be updating that number. Or you can create a method on your class to always do it for you. And you can do it like this as a getter, so you don't have to actually execute it. Again, it's a convenience method. Instead of having to put parentheses at the end of it, it's just temp1 dot total, don't execute anything.
So it almost feels like it's taking that function, that computation, and turning it into a property instead of running like an outside
Yeah.
method on it.
Yeah, and it's also for the other developers who are consuming this class to know that, because whenever you see parentheses like this, that feels like, oh, I can interact with this somehow. I can pass something to it. This is just being more strict of like, no, you can't pass anything to me. I'm strictly I'm going to compute something and I'm going to return it to you.
Earlier, you said something about passing parameters when you call a method. So for example, the method full name, if it was back to its original state where it didn't have get in front of it, and let's say, for example, you said person dot full name, and then you passed 2 parameters, would that override? Oh, that would just become this dot name and this dot last, right? Is that what you're saying?
Or in
Okay,
full name,
so-
would you have to put
Oh.
arguments in that full name method?
So
And then when you called it,
yeah, like
have to-
I never knew. I guess I don't know if I knew or never tried or don't remember, but I don't recall calling a method and passing parameters to it. So I'm wondering what
Okay.
happens if you say person dot full name and you pass 2 parameters. What happens? Does that override I don't know what's going to happen, but
Yeah, let's do it. So full name, and you could say blah and neat. We won't do anything. We're not using any of those parameters, but we could do something like I don't know. I'm going to call it delimiter. And so instead of doing this right here, we're going to do plus delimiter. And so we'll hit save there. And so we can do temp1 dot full name. And we could pass in, so if I don't pass a delimiter in there, it's Cameron undefined Rogers, or we could pass in, maybe we want our delimiter to be a bunch of dashes.
oh, okay, or just his middle name.
Or his middle name, sure.
So okay, so what do I learn from this? So if you, I can't remember the argument or parameters, which order it goes in, but if you put a parameter on line 36, if you define a parameter, or if you make a spot for a parameter there, then you can pass it when you call the method, and it'll always just go in the center. Or
It'll
did
go
you just go in?
wherever
Go in
you
the
want.
center because it's. How did it know to go in this? Oh, because you put it right there. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
You put
Okay.
it wherever the heck you want.
Gotcha.
But now if we put the word get in front of this, I think it's going to get mad at us. Should be mad. Yeah, there we go. Uncaught syntax error. Getter must not have any formal parameters. See, it called it parameters. It keeps going back and forth between parameters and arguments. See, all right. So that's just straight up saying, hey, you can't have this. All right. Okay. Now it's happy. And now you can do temp1 dot full name. Cool.
Okay. Are getters pretty rare?
Uh,
Like, are they like so important or any, or just like not really type of thing?
So I'm just, it's through my jobs that I've worked at, they're not used very frequently. And honestly, it's really due to the developers just not being as familiar with them. Getters and setters, I think, are actually, I want to look this up, but I believe they're fairly new to
Oh, okay.
JavaScript itself.
Okay.
we keep saying setters, and is that important for me to know what that is right now? Because
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just
So-
nodding my head like I know what you're talking about, but I don't.
Okay. Yeah. So for example, how I was saying before, we said temp1.age, and then I could set it to crap. And that's not good. Age 1 can't be a string. It has to be a number. age can't be a letter. That's silly. So we set age to crap, but we want to protect it. So we're going to do a setter on age. So actually, I'm going to change something up here. So we're going to do this. We're going to say underscore in front of all of these. In JavaScript, just like capitalizing of the first letter of a class is it's not enforced, but it's just common practice. Same thing with doing underscores in front of private properties where you don't want to let other people touch these things. That's all that means. It's not true syntax. But anyway, so we're saying, hey, this dot underscore age is a private property. If anyone wants to access age, they can do a getter. They can say get age, and I will return back to you. Return this dot underscore age. And
So what made it a private property? Not the underscore, right?
I'm air quoting. It did make it a private property by putting the underscore there. Not
Okay,
really.
so-
JavaScript's not strict about that.
So putting it in getter does not make it private property. The underscore is what makes it private property.
Yes. JavaScript, just for funsies, JavaScript private property class. So there is a new there's a new property coming out. So just like we're doing, since I'm doing underscores in front of this, I'm saying it's private, but there's this new proposal coming out to update JavaScript that if you put a hashtag or a pound in front of it, then it's private and no one is allowed to. I can't say person dot name or person dot last. It's private. It would throw an error. But this is in stage 3 proposal, which means it's still under discussion by all the people who build the browsers, who implement the new versions of JavaScript.
There is a way to, like right now, to make it private, but it's kind of hacky.
So
Yeah.
what you're talking about in terms of making things private, you're talking about making properties private, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so eventually there might be able to put a hashtag in front of it. Right now you can put an underscore in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what I don't understand is like the getter thing is, I thought that was what was making it unchangeable. So is it the hashtag, is it the underscore, or is it the getter that's making it unchangeable?
None of them. It's
Oh,
the
okay.
underscore is a verbal or a written agreement with all the other developers that when they open up your class and they say, oh, underscore name, they're supposed to look and then go, oh, it's underscore name. This is private. I
Okay.
shouldn't touch this.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So, would you say for like getters, is that kind of more of like a debugging tool or like an error handling, functionality, or just kind of all in all having, optimal code?
Right now, my best answer for you until I look at it and look for better examples, it's just a convenience. It just makes it so, for example, full name right here. I don't want to, it's silly executing full name whenever it feels like it should be a property. So it's just a convenience right now.
Okay.
Probably doesn't answer the question quite to the fullest. Doesn't answer my own. I want to go look into that one more. But let me rewind a little bit and come back to, we're getting into setters here. So if I go sort global variable and I say temp1 dot, I can call, you see there's underscore age here. I can get that, which you're not supposed to because that's supposed to be private. But we can also call it age like that. So we got a getter, gets it. So now we don't want to allow people to set age. So I can't do temp1 age equals blah. Well, it actually just overwrote my getter method, I think, when I did that. Yeah, that overrode my getter method. Whoops. Okay. So you're not supposed to be able to do that. That's bad. So what we're going to do is we do a setter. So we say set age. And so with a set, this does take a property in. So it goes, we'll call this the new age. And we can set this dot underscore age equals new age. Save that. And you go temp1 dot age is 35. And if I go temp1 underscore age dot underscore age 35, and if I go temp1 dot age equals 40, I do temp1 dot age should be 40, but it also changed temp1 dot underscore age to be 40 now. So it called this, and it did it under the hood. It did a setter method where it came up here, updated age. But now, but we can also do this. Go if Lehigh, do any of you guys know off the top of your head to check if this is a type number?
If it's a what?
A number, JS check if variable
Type of?
is.
Oh, you mean just type of?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know what you were asking. Just type of space and then your variable.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the,
Cool.
it's the weirdest thing since you're not actually passing it to a function.
So you go if new age type of number. Oops, I feel like I'm doing this wrong. I forgot to do type of. We can do is
in an
nan.
if statement. That is interesting in an if statement. If new age type of equals number.
So we can do is nan. That works too. Is not a number. But I want to do type of. Oh, like there. Type of number. Okay, there. Other way around. So I got to move this to the other side. If type of new age triple equals, and then it's actually a lowercase number. Type of is actually really cool. That's when I was telling you person, when I was showing off to the side. I'll show that in a second. If type of new age equals a number, do this. Else, console.error age is a number, dummy. Cool. So now that we have that, we can compare stores temp1 dot age equals, and then if we, we'll say 55. Great, that works. But then we come in here and we say, hey, temp1 dot age equals blah. What are we gonna get?
Age is a number, dummy.
Age is a number, dummy. So then we can say,
okay.
so we just protected that. So we just protected that property on the class. So now I come under age, it's still 55.
That actually totally makes sense.
Okay, so the biggest difference between a getter and a setter that I'm seeing is the setter makes it permanent, where the getter just changes it for that instance.
Wait, say that again.
Like the biggest difference that I'm seeing with the getter and the setter is the setter makes the change to the property permanent if you change it, where the getter just changes it temporarily for that instance. But if you call it again off of a getter, it'll still default back to the original.
Yeah, a getter is.
A getter is not changing the property at all. It just gets it from the class, where a setter is setting that property.
Yeah, so a getter just is a computation get, which means it says, hey, they want to get this property. Before I give it to you, let me put some things together and then give it to you. Setters are the same thing, or just reverse, where they say, hey, I want you to set this property, and it says, okay.
Oh, that's right, because you can't pass you can't pass arguments into getters.
No, you can't pass anything into
So
a getter.
you're not changing anything. You're literally just grabbing whatever's there and whatever computation you attach to it.
Yeah. So with getters and setters, what neat about them, they put a layer in between the normal behavior of just giving you the value and just setting the value. Setters, you can put a check in there to make sure, like, hey, make sure this doesn't happen. Or some other neat things too. You could do analytics. You can capture every single time somebody sets age. You can send off a request to your backend saying, updating your analytics saying, oh, somebody set age, keep updating. So now you know that that property is being used a lot. You do a lot of neat stuff with setters and getters too, because I can also, whenever someone gets full name, I can send off an API request saying, somebody use my full name method. So yeah, getters and setters just lets you do extra stuff before actually giving back or setting a value.
Okay.
It's kind of neat stuff. We are over time for today. Any other remaining questions before I tell you about all the other more neat stuff that you can do with classes that I would love for us to expand upon next week?
I was reading about static methods and props that I didn't understand. So I'd love to find that out later.
Could you pull data from an API and store it in a class? I'd assume you probably would have to have like some of the parameters of the API's data prior to probably making that class.
You sure can. I actually really, I'm going to show you guys how I use classes as factories. Have you guys heard of that word before?
No.
Oh, okay. It's a class that does API requests. So like, we'll dive into it more next week, but just a taste of it. So pretend like all this data is up on a server. And you want to do an API request to say, give me all the people come back. Whenever you get information from the server, you don't get classes from the server. You just get JSON. That's all you get back and forth from the server. I mean, sure, you can do text and images, but you don't get an instance. You get just JSON. So what you would want to do is you would get this back from the server. You would then loop through the people and you would call new person for each one of those people created and then return back now you have an instance of a person. So what I do, or what a lot of other developers do, it's this paradigm called factories. And what it is it's a class and it has, I'm gonna throw a lot at you guys, it has a static method on there. So let's say there's a person class. You do person dot get people, and that's where it would have a static method on it that would make an API request to a backend, get the people, bring them back, and then under the hood it would say new person, new person, new person, new person, new person, and then that return it back to whoever's consuming it. I understand that's a lot of information, and I'm really excited to show you guys how to do that.
No, I'm very specifically looking forward to learning.
That actually makes sense. Is it okay? So you're getting basically, when you say JSON, you're getting a string back from the server or the database, and then you have to parse through that. Wait, what do you get back? You get back a string, right? And then you parse through it to take it out of the string format. Is that what you do? What is?
Yeah, that's what you do when you're looking at a fetch method. Like, yeah. If we really dial it back, the server, the backend, whenever you're communicating over network, it has no idea about JSON or anything. It just knows about strings. So really, what it's doing is it's giving you a string of JSON, and then when you receive them on the front end, you convert that string into JSON.
Okay, so what does JSON.parse do actually?
JSON.parse, that takes a string and converts it into actual JSON. So for kicks and giggles here.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So in your example, your factory example, just to make sure I understand it correctly, you're saying that you would get back a string and then turn it into JSON, and then you would turn it into objects. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect. String
Okay.
JSON object.
Okay.
And then whenever you want to save it to the server, you go backwards because you can't save a class. So you go class,
Yeah.
back to JSON, back to a string as it sends it over to the network, back to your server. Your server receives it as a string. They turn it back into JSON, and then they can turn it into classes too if they want to. And then they
That's
can save
actually
it.
perfect for that little, remember the project we were working on with the Star Wars API on Monday? I had to turn it into objects, but I did something other than that. And so that'll be useful to know.
Yeah. Cool. And then you had a question about what does this do? So here's an object here. If I want to turn this object into my JSON object into a string, how would I do it?
Stringify.
Yes. JSON.stringify me. I'm going to hold this into const t. Sure. So then if I hit t, it's a string. I can't say t.name. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't know what that is because it's a string. And then if I want to convert it from a string back into JSON, what do I do?
JSON.parse.
JSON.parse. JSON.parse. Yay, I'm back. So you use those a lot whenever you're communicating with the server. Cool. So yeah, next time we meet, I would like to continue this discussion on classes. We'll do a deeper dive. We'll talk about static methods. We'll talk about extending a class. That's pretty cool. Extending a class is where you have like a base class. Let's say you have a person, but then you have a class called developer, but a person or a developer is a person. So you take developer and you extend person. So now the developer class automatically has name, last name, age, job, full name, but then it also has other things on it too. We'll talk about that more. And factories.
Nice. Is the format of this class, I think this is like my second or third class. Do you typically go for 1 hour on the lesson and then just ask a few questions? I mean, what time or are we trying to hop off typically on your classes on Wednesday?
So Wednesdays, I usually shoot for about an hour, trying to hit the concepts hard to see if we can
Got it,
cover
okay.
what it is. And then I'm not a traditional teacher, so I'm just very loose with, after that, I'll follow any questions you guys got and I'll do demos on like JSON.stringify, for example. We'll just kind of follow that, but then I'll try to bring it back to our topic of classes.
So last week, I think we went to like, for like 2 hours, but that was not custom. That was not customary. Like it's typically just a little over an hour or something, right?
Little over an hour, and then
Okay.
I'll usually hang around for a little while and just shoot the breeze or just play around with any questions you guys have.
Awesome.
So cool. Any other questions or anything else I can help out with right now? Awesome. Okay,
Nope. Looking forward to next week.
Cool. I'm going to stop recording right now. And Cameron, I understand that you had some questions about your project that you're getting ready to start working on. If you want to ask those while the group's all here too, if they can benefit from it as well, then please ask.
No, yeah. So I was just